Hi, my name is Pam Carriker, and I would like to demonstrate some Visual Journalism 101 techniques to get started in art journaling in a Strathmore watercolor art journal. The first step for creating this page is to mix a glaze, which is about 1 part acrylic fluid paint to 2 to 3 parts of water, and a little of an acrylic glazing medium, and that will give you a watercolor consistency of the paint. And you're just going to paint the whole page with a very light color, and it doesn't matter brush stroke direction or anything else. You just want to get the page nice and covered with this light paint. Once the first layer of paint has dried, you're going to take another color of paint, and I like to use one that's just a little darker but the same color family as the first one, and you're going to paint on some of that color around the outside edges. And if you want a little trick for doing some blending, use a baby wipe and just rub that in, and you get a really nice soft look. It's really easy to move the paint around with that. And just go around the page and remember to leave some of the original color showing through. When that's dry, then I'd like to take a rubber stamp that has some text on it, and this is an unmounted rubber stamp, meaning it's just the rubber with no backing. I really like to use these because you can get kind of a more imperfectly stamped look. And I'm using a permanent dye ink pad so that I don't have to worry about the ink running later on in the process as I add wet layers. And you can see I'm just adding a little text that's going to be underneath. I call this under journaling. You can either use a rubber stamp like I'm doing, or you could use look that up again. You could use just some journaling of your own, and I do that a lot. And right over the top of that, I'm going to add a third color of paint to my page. And you can add the glazes of paint as much as you like over the top, just layering them back and forth. And as long as you let them dry in between, your colors won't muddy up and they will stay true. Okay, and now it's time for just a little more color. I like to play the colors back and forth on top of each other, so I'm going to use the same gold color that I was using before and just add one more layer of that over the top of some areas of the page. And by doing this, by reintroducing colors like this, you really get a nice finished look to your page. It's not just flat colors laying down there. It's playing back and forth, and the depth of the colors changes by adding. We're going to add a little texture. So I'm taking just a little bit of a sea sponge, and I'm going to dip it directly into the some of the paint, pounce it off a bit, and then I'm just going to randomly pounce it onto the page. And this will just give some nice texture to the page. There's a little bit of sequin waste, and we can use that as well. Sequin waste is actually the waste from sequins, and it's called sequin scrim. There's different names for it. And if you just pounce lightly, I'm using a chalk ink here, just pounce lightly and add a little bit of that, you get a little bit of that little dot texture. Really nice addition to the page, really easy. Now it's time to add some collage to your page. Collage elements, I really like to use snippets from previous artwork. Sometimes if I do artwork on a piece of watercolor paper, I trim it to size when I'm done, and I'll end up with these little bits of art, basically, just little snippets that I like to reintroduce into journal pages. And that gives you a journal page that is full of your own work, rather than going and, purchasing digital clip art, which you can do, and I have done, and I will use a little bit on this page as well. You can find different things, collage items, all over the place. So really kind of look around and use things from your life, and that really makes your pages just that much more interesting and about you, instead of just, cutting out pictures that other people, that don't have any meaning for you. Those create pretty pages, but they're not, sometimes it's good to add in little bits and pieces of your own life to your pages. So these are some ticket stubs from an airplane flight. I'm going to add those right on. Some of these things don't glue down real well, and what I do is I peel the layers of paper apart to get an ultra thin layer, and I rip the pages too so that you get a nice torn edge, and that gives you an easier just an easier collage surface to work with, because you have that nice fuzzy back edge and it grabs that glue really well. And I'm just using a soft gel medium for my collage glue. There's lots of different products out that you can use to glue collage down, so find one that works for you. And see, I'm just working it back and forth. I paint the back of the piece of paper and I paint the page that I'm gluing it to, and just keep doing that around the page. And I'm saving my focal point, which is going to be a photocopy of my husband and I for the end. So continue to glue around and add collage items around the outside edge until it gets to a point that you like it. So you can see I've added several pieces of collage around the outside edge. I'm getting ready to add my focal point, and my focal point is just a black and white copy from the printer of a photo of my husband and I. And so I'm just going to add the glue to the back of that. And add glue to the page where it's going to be. And just right over the top. Okay, when your collage items have dried, it's sometimes a good idea to take a little extra paint from your palette and kind of paint over the top, and this will help integrate the collage materials right into the background. And what I'm doing here on the text portions is I'm kind of leaving those parts of the text that I want to show. I leave those blank. Okay, now I'm going to add just a few more stamping details over the top, and I'm using a little hand carved stamp here. I'm just going to randomly stamp that on the page. What is key to keep in mind when you're working in a journal is just to go back and forth between processes and do it repeatedly until you get, you know, a nice layered look on your page that you really like, and it just helps tie everything in together. The more you layer, the more interest your page will hold. You can see I'm just going right over the top. By going over the top of your page elements, you're integrating everything together, and it just starts tying everything together, which is key. And I don't worry about things being stamped perfectly, because that's not my main goal here, to have everything, you know, I want it to look like some things are fading out and some things are standing out more. This is a little script stamp that I'm going to use, and I'm just going to go right over some of the elements with this. And I stamp more than once. I ink it up once and stamp several times using different parts of the stamp, so it looks different every time. You don't want to just like plop a stamp on there. That's not quite as interesting. And also, I'm going to use just a little white over their pants. I'm going to take this kind of dirty stamp that I have, spread out some white paint, ink it up with some white paint, and it has a little bit of that ink on it. Go right over their pants here to add some interest and put them a little bit more in the background. And then we'll go on to the next layer. When adding some shading to your page, you're going to want to determine what the direction of your light source is going to be, and I'm going to have mine coming from the upper right hand corner. So I'm just going to take a charcoal pencil and lightly go around that side of stamped elements, of collage elements, whatever you're wanting to kind of highlight and bring out a little bit. And I'm just using a few sketchy strokes, and then what I do is I take a blending stump and blend that out. And that really just gives a nice soft look to the page. It makes the elements really sit in there nice. It makes them pop off the page if you want them to. And I'm just smudging it a little bit. And you end up with a little charcoal on your blending stump that can carry you over a few elements as well. So just do that around the page. Kind of set these little elements together and blend them in. When you go to add the text to your page, sometimes I just write randomly on the page, and other times I want the text to be the thing that's the kind of a focal point as well. And on this page was all about the journey, so that's what I wrote on here. And I used a graphite pencil first, and then I'm just going to use a little acrylic paint pen to get that flowing, to write the words. And a lot of times I'll start with like the biggest main word and kind of figure out how I want that to look on the page, and then write the other ones around it. I kind of write randomly, and I make the words fit into the spaces that are there, even if it's not you know, a perfect space, or the word doesn't quite fit perfectly into it. So I would just take the paint pen, go around. Can use any kind of pens for this. There are so many pens, it would take all day to name them all. So I just use different types of pens, different types of lettering, and get your words and your voice to the page. And then it's time for some doodling on the page. Okay, when you have your lettering, you know, finished off, and I added a little heavy black line to one side and a lighter black line to the other, following the same principle as the shading. So it looks like the letters have a little depth to them. And I just did that with some black pen. And then I also like to take the black pen and kind of do a little sketchy stroking around the outside of some of the images, just to give it a little more drawn look. You can hang things, like I'm going to hang this number 2 just by drawing the line straight up there. Hang that up. You can go around and, you know, block off some of the words that you wanted to show so they pop out a little more. Some numbers, things like that. That's one thing that you can do for adding the little doodle to the extra. I added longer hair to her because I have longer hair now than I did in that picture it was taken a while ago. So, you know, play with the picture, add things to your characters in the pictures. This is just a white pen, and I like to fill in like the little flowers. So I'll go around and do that and add some detail to the little hand-stamped flowers that I did. Add some centers to them and some little dots and things like that, just to make those sit on top of the page a little more and be kind of a nice design element to it.